how's the season going from your perspective? Because last season, I think it's fair to say it was fragmented with injury, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a frustrating year last year, to say the least. But yeah, just obviously the few head knocks, couple of injuries, and disappointing. But yeah, had a great preseason this one, which was good. Didn't have any surgery throughout the off season and stuff like that, which definitely helped. But yeah, really ripped into the preseason and made sure that got the body back up to scratch to play a long Super League season. So things have started well so far at the moment. But yeah, got a lot to go.
3 head injuries last season. How worrying was that for you?
Yeah, very, very, very worrying. Considering that, had a reasonably long career and I've had a few head knocks throughout my career. So to have 3 in one season was a bit scary. So it was good to sort of get that rest and get right. Obviously missed the World Cup, and then just to get myself right for the pre-season.
Indeed. It does make you wonder, doesn't it, when you get a succession of head knocks and concussion? Just give us a bit of an insight into, what the symptoms were and what it left you feeling physically.
Well, I just think, yeah, obviously all the stuff coming out about it now makes you really second guess it. And that's probably the worrying signs, not the fact that everyone, like the doctors and that, are trying to look after us, but just the more awareness of the symptoms that you get and the effects that it can have on long term, not so much short term. So that's sort of the scary side of things. But yeah, for me last year, just obviously having headaches, concentration and stuff like that was being affected, and yeah, so those sorts of things were sort of a bit longer, hanging around for a bit longer than usual, so which was a scary sign. But obviously the rest that I had was needed, and going back to Australia, obviously staying away from the contact side of things, and then coming back pre-season was a good break.
Did it ever cross your mind that it might be the time to say, I'm going to look to the future rather than the present?
100%. went in my head many a times last year. And like I said at the start, it was a very frustrating year for myself, and obviously as a team as well, we weren't going too well, and yeah, very, very ups and downs, roller coaster of a year, and it was questionable.
Indeed. More from the physical point of view rather than the performance point of view?
Yeah, just more so the physical, what the effects have, and that, like I said earlier, with the long-term effect of concussion and what's coming out about it was behind the sort of thinking of, do I need to keep playing? So they were in the back of my mind and stuff like that. But yeah, obviously, getting the rest that I needed has definitely helped and changed my mindset.
Does it change your mindset for the future? You're out of contract at the end of the season.
Knew that was coming.
Well, it's an obvious question, wasn't it?
Question. No. Yeah, definitely considering it, and I think more so now with the preseason that I've had, how things are going and how the culture's changed here as a club has really questioned my decision on whether I re-sign or not. And it's a decision that I haven't made yet. I've obviously got to look for things after football and retirement, look after the body as well. But, all those things that I just suggested, it's making it an enjoyable place to be at the moment. And, it'd be hard to really walk away from that at them.
It's a discussion that you need to have with your wife, with your family, as well as on the professional side with the club. Does the outcome of how you've progressed have an influence on what that decision might be?
Well, probably not so much. I think it's just a decision that I just have to come to terms with, whether I've do I need to keep putting my body on the line, and do I need to keep showing up and being professional, and do I want to do all those things, and what it takes to be a professional athlete, and all those things come into play. Do I need to keep my family on the other side of the world, away from all the cousins and aunties, uncles, grandparents? All those decisions come into play, and and I think over the next probably 2 months, I'd say, I'd really have to come down to a decision, not only for my sake, but for the club's sake as well, because, they're definitely heading in the right direction with things, and they need to look to their future as well.
It's been like under Willie Peters.
Oh, it's been awesome. Been awesome so far. And I'm sure in the future, but yeah, he's been really good through the preseason. Got some great, I think he's just managed the players really well. He's a very professional in his approach with all his drills and what he wants out of what he wants the standard to be from us players. And that's what I've loved as well, having Willie Peters here come bring all that professionalism. It's exactly what we needed here at the club. And, he's done a good job so far. And I think continuing on, I'm sure he will be a good coach.
I know it's early doors in his coaching in career, but where does he stand in the list of coaches that you've played under? I mean, you haven't had a lot of time, but you can gather some sort of idea on it, can't you?
Well, he's definitely got a lot of potential there to be a really successful coach. Whether he, stays here in the Super League or he goes back home to the NRL, but I definitely believe that he's up there with one of the best coaches, and to know that it's only his first year, I think he's really promising for his.
What singles him out then to be special? Is it his communication skills? Is it his ideas about how rugby league should be played? His ideas about how you get from A to B, from B to C?
I just think his philosophy around the rugby league game of effort, and the way he approaches games, the way of what he says to sort of get the players in the right mindset, and obviously keeping everyone at a high standard, knowing that, if you're not performing well, then, there's someone there to sort of take your position. So I think he's had that balance really well through the time that he's been here. And, there's no doubt that he's learning more things being a head coach under us players. But, yeah, he's been really professional in that sense.
And in terms of the coaching team, it's a very experienced one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they've been around, yeah. You got Hodgie, Magsy. Magsy's been doing our attack and stuff. He's probably one of the best attacking halves in the game. And obviously his game was based around all effort and stuff as well. So the coaching staff, they're sharing similar values in what we want to bring to this club. And I think, in the past, it's always been about how can we sort of trick teams and do all the trick plays and stuff like that. Whereas more now it's all around how can we break teams down.
How can you compete with them physically? Because I think Willie's on the record. Well, he is on the record as saying that, you've got to compete physically before you can do the fancy dance stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're spot on.
Okay. You come up against your former side on Friday evening. How are you viewing that?
Hopefully a win.
Goes nice without saying, doesn't it?
Yeah. No, I know. And obviously they're going to come over here. There's a few little hurdles in their way, but that's what they live up to. They're one of the best at dealing with adversity. And, they've got from the loss on the weekend as well against Wigan, against the derby, they'll be hurting from that and wanting to sort of bounce back. And, that's what sort of good teams do. They bounce back from their losses. So I'm expecting, no less than, Saints' best performance on Friday night. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game for us.
No, Warmsley, he's a big player for them, isn't he?
Yeah, big loss for Warmsley. I think big loss for Saints, sorry, losing Warmsley. They probably missed him on the weekend as well, just creating those quick play the ball so that the halves can do their pretty stuff. But yeah, like I said, they've got standards in their group, and whoever feels their position, does a good job. So being around in that environment, I know exactly what they'll be coming with plenty of effort.
Indeed. But at the end of the day, if you match their effort, do you have the belief that you can do what you did to Wigan on the opening game of the season?
Oh, I think we've got the ability to, definitely, yeah. We've shown at times that we can match it with the best, and I think even just with the Catalans game and the Warrington game, if we just sort of execute a few little plays there, then it's probably a different looking scoreline. So we've got the ability and the belief that we can do it, but we just got to make sure that we're the team on the night that's playing at our best.
Well, you've got to be with them for the full 80 minutes, haven't you? Because they can put points on a side very, very quickly, particularly with the likes of Makinson. He's he's very dynamic, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And that's, like I said, if we can try and control them a little bit and sort of keep the individuals at bay, we'll go a long way. But yeah, like I said, you got to, like you just said, then you got to play with them for 80 minutes. You can't die off in any standards, or you got to keep rolling with them.
Well, it would be a big win, wouldn't it? You're in fourth place at the moment, ahead of Saints, ironically, but you can't rest on those laurels, can you? And say, well, we've won the last three, so you've got to outdo Saints. You've got to do a Saints to Saints, if you know what I mean, because it's these games that determine where you are in the ladder, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's, we've got that expectation now, and I think teams, are obviously not going to take us lightly where we're sitting. So, we've earned that respect, I guess, in terms of how our performances have been going, and but we're like, as a club going forward, we've got to live up to that now. So, I think that's where we need to get to as a club, and on Friday night would be a good night to do that.
Is there a buzz about the place?
Yeah, it's been good, been really good. I think last week was, one of those games where you sort of get up and emotional and everything like that. And so you sort of up a massive high, and then after the game, it's, you sort of relax a bit. So, but yeah, it's all about rolling on and being professional and getting back into that mindset of, we're going after Saints this week. So.
Well, it doesn't happen every week that you win by 40 points to nil in a local derby. So just give us an insight into the belief patterns and how that's gone from A to B.
Yeah, well, I think nothing against FC, but yeah, they haven't obviously been performing too well at the moment, and that's something that we can't get ahead of. Yes, we played some good footy, and there was some great efforts from some of the boys, but it's going to be a total different game this weekend. We're coming up a team that, like you said, play 80 minutes, so going to be totally different. But yeah, to go out and put 40 points on, it's something that we haven't done this year yet. So it's always good to be a part of those games and fun also.
A lot's been said about them beating the Penrith Panthers and becoming World Club champions, and how much that took out of them emotionally, physically, the travel and everything else. And people are pointing to the fact that that's still having a knock-on effect. Do you believe that's the case, or do you believe St. Helens are just on that little bit of a dip at the moment?
It's hard to get a gauge on it when you're not in that environment and you're not sort of seeing the inside of everything going on. But I think that early on, probably when they first got back, it might have had an impact. But I don't think it'll affect them going forward, and that's probably not the case. I think everyone's there's other teams that have sort of stepped up and are going with them and matching their standards and stuff like that. So I think putting it down to that. But although, Saints are still creating some good opportunities, and like on the weekend against Wigan, they created the opportunities, they just didn't finish them off. So they've still got a lot of footy in them, or a lot of rugby, I should say. And but yeah, there's no doubt that I'm sure they're a game away from being at their best.
And that we've got an English coach as well. After having a succession of Australian NRL type coaches, you've been under Paul Wellens' influence. Has that played a factor, do you think?
I don't think that's the reason why things or where they're sitting at the moment. No, I think, Wellows, he's been under some great coaches. He bought his time and learnt a lot from those guys that were ahead of him. And, and even just, hearing the stuff, being around Wello and stuff and the way he speaks and stuff, I think, it's sort of more, you get more excited when Wello talks. That's the sort of impact he has on the players. And so I don't think that's partly the reason. But yeah, who knows? hard to judge.
It is. One final question then. We kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you're going to win the game, how do you think you've got to go about it?
I think just obviously dealing with their individuals. So I think they've got a lot of strong individuals that can change a game at any moment, like Lewis Dodd, Johnny Lomax, those likes of players that can just create something from nothing. So if we can try and handle those individuals, and then I think just not gifting them any opportunities. I think we need to have obviously a high completion rate and stuff like that. So if we give them any opportunities, they're a team that can take it.
Lachlan, lovely to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate.
Hi, Lachlan. How are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good stuff. I won't keep you too long. Most stuff's been covered. You obviously know a good halfback when you see him. You've played with some greats in the NRL in that sense. How enjoyable is it playing with Jordan Abdul and Michael Lewis at the moment?
Yeah, it's been really good. We've been working really close together over the pre-season, and it's good to actually, get some games together and get some time spent together during that pre-season. But yeah, they're two quality players, different styles of football, how they play, which is perfect, which suits us both. But yeah, they've been really good. George has been really good so far in terms of steering us around, and then Mike is just with his speed playing off the back of all that.
Yeah, I think they've been good individually in the past, but are they really starting to click as a pairing now, do you think?
Yeah, well, that's more so what I was sort of trying to get at is like the combinations that they're building together, and obviously having that time together, and growing, like you said, not as individuals, but yeah, playing and connecting together.
Yeah, it's a good challenge for those guys up against Lomax and Dodd this week, but also for you guys as a spine as a whole. Is it one that excites you going up against those guys, Roby and Wellesby as well?
Yeah. Well, I'd say they're probably the best spine in the Super League. So yeah, it'd be a good contest coming up against them. Yeah,
and you might have touched on this already, but do you feel like you're starting to benefit as a spine from regular game time together?
Oh, there's no doubt that it helps getting the combinations together, and then obviously, like I said before, during the preseason, having that time together was really good to work out. Obviously, like early on you talk, but then at the end of when you spent this much time together and you're playing together, you sort of just know how each other work. So it definitely helps.
Yeah, just finally on your future, have you had any discussions with the club about a new contract or anything?
No, not so much yet. They've been pretty good, the club, actually, not putting any pressure on or anything like that. There was a discussion briefly before the season started of just seeing how the first half of the season sort of unfolds, and then we'll see where we're at physically and all those kinds of things. So, but that was the only chat we've sort of had.
Are you quite happy, and are the club quite happy to take it quite deep into the season to see how you feel as it goes on?
Well, like I've said earlier, I think probably over the next probably maybe 2 months, I'd say, because I think it's only fair on the club whether I do stay or whether I go, just to know where they're at, so they can sort of look if I do end up leaving or sort of retiring or whatever, but then they can look elsewhere. So yeah, it's only fair on them that I make a decision sooner rather than later.
Yeah, fair enough. Good stuff. Thank you. All the best on Friday. Enjoy it. Cheers.
Cheers.